Midnight echoes. Ronan Mercer wiped grease-stained hands across his worn jeans and stepped back from the motorcycle engine that had consumed his evening hours. The clock on his workshop wall read 2:17 a.m., but time meant little in his world of metal and machinery. Night hours were when he did his best work, when the desert town of Solace slept and left him alone with his thoughts through the skylights of his converted barn workshop. Stars glittered like scattered diamonds on black velvet. He often found himself staring upward, wondering what secrets those distant lights held. Ronan lived for these moments of quiet contemplation, surrounded by half-finished projects and the comforting smell of motor oil. Another night. Another engine, he murmured to himself, reaching for a lukewarm coffee mug. He tilted it back, grimacing at the bitter dregs when a strange vibration rattled the tools hanging on his wall. At first he thought it might be an earthquake, but the sound accompanying it was wrong, a high-pitched hum that seemed to descend from above. The coffee mug slipped from his fingers, shattering on the concrete floor as the humming intensified. What the hell? Ronan rushed outside, his boots crunching on gravel as he tilted his head skyward, just in time to witness a brilliant streak of violet-blue light cutting across the night. The object, whatever it was, moved too erratically for a meteor, banking sharply before disappearing beyond the sand dunes that bordered town. His heart hammered against his ribs. Something inside him knew this wasn't normal space debris or a military test from the base 60 miles north. This was something else entirely. Ronan sprinted to his truck, an ancient Ford with more rust than paint, and turned the key. The engine protested before reluctantly grumbling to life. He navigated the dark desert roads with practiced ease, headlights cutting through darkness as he followed the trajectory of the fallen object. After 2 miles of rough terrain, he crested a dune and stopped. The truck's headlights illuminated a strange depression in the sand, but nothing else. No wreckage, no fire, nothing that should have been there after the impact he'd witnessed. Confusion furrowed his brow as he climbed out, flashlight in hand. The sand around the depression was crystallized, almost glass-like heat so intense it had transformed the desert floor when he touched it. The surface still radiated warmth impossible, he whispered. The imprint suggested something nearly 20 feet long had landed here, yet nothing remained. Ronan spent another hour searching the surrounding dunes, but found no other evidence of the crash. Eventually, exhaustion won out, and he reluctantly returned to his truck. The mystery would have to wait until morning. As he drove back toward town, unease settled over him like a heavy blanket. He couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had fallen from the sky tonight would change everything. Maybe it was just the sleep deprivation talking. He'd check again after a few hours of rest back at his workshop. Ronan collapsed onto the worn couch that served as his bed most nights. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of violet light and strange humming that seemed to call his name from across the stars. He couldn't know that by this time tomorrow, those stars would be standing right in front of him, asking for his help. Silver Footprint's morning arrived with harsh sunlight streaming through the skylights. Ronan groaned, shielding his eyes with his forearm. His dreams had been vivid and unsettling, filled with strange lights and sounds that lingered in his mind even as consciousness returned. He sat up, muscles protesting after his late-night excursion. The events from hours earlier felt dreamlike now. Had he really seen something crash in the desert? The crystallized sand had been real enough, but with daylight flooding his workshop, doubt crept in. He was halfway through his second cup of coffee when the door creaked open. A silhouette appeared in the threshold. Backlit by the morning sun, Ronan squinted, unable to make out details until the figure stepped inside. His coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. The woman, if she could be called that, stood barely 5 feet tall. Her skin was unmistakably purple, a soft lavender shade that seemed to shimmer beneath the workshop lights. Her eyes were large, iridescent pools of silver with no visible pupils. Her hair fell in cascading waves of deeper violet, adorned with what appeared to be tiny luminescent stones. But most striking was her clothing, a fluid material that rippled like mercury with every breath she took. Clinging to a distinctly humanoid form, she was barefoot, leaving faint silver footprints on his concrete floor. "You require assistance," she said. It wasn't a question. Her voice had a musical quality, as though several tones played beneath her words. Ronan set down his mug carefully, wondering if he was still dreaming. "Who are you?" I am designated Nisa Vaughn, she replied, her head tilting slightly as she studied him. You witnessed my arrival. That was you? In the desert last night? His mind raced, trying to reconcile the small figure before him with the crash he'd seen. She nodded, the movement too precise to be human. My vessel experienced critical failure during atmospheric entry. I managed to engage emergency protocols and cloak the craft before impact. She reached into a fold in her mercury-like clothing and withdrew an object that resembled twisted metal, fused with crystal. I require repair components. Ronan stood slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. You're not from around here. A slight curve touched her violet lips, an accurate assessment. He approached cautiously, studying her. Why come to me? I monitored local communications. Your establishment possesses necessary materials. My scans indicated you work alone with minimal interaction, optimal conditions for discretion. Ronan's gaze dropped to the silver footprints she left on his floor. They evaporated slowly, leaving no trace. What happens if I say no? Nissa's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in those silver eyes. Then I remained stranded on a planet whose authorities would likely dissect me for research purposes. He couldn't help but laugh at her bluntness. Fair point. What exactly do you need? She extended her hand, offering the strange component. This navigation array was damaged. I require materials to reconstruct its functionality. Hesitantly, Ronan reached for the object. Their fingers brushed. A visible shudder ran through Nissa's form, and he noticed her pupils briefly materialize, expanding wide before disappearing again. She flinched but didn't withdraw her hand. Sorry, he said automatically. Physical contact is uncommon where I originate. Her voice softened, but not unpleasant. Ronan examined the component, professionally masking his fascination with both it and her. I'll need to see the ship to understand how this fits into your systems. Nisa studied him silently, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. You helped me once already by not alerting others to my arrival. I didn't know what I was helping then, he admitted. And now, Ronan looked into those silver eyes and felt something shift inside him. Curiosity, compassion, or perhaps something deeper he couldn't yet name. Now I'm choosing to help. Nissa's expression remained mostly unreadable, but her shoulders relaxed slightly. Then we should proceed. The desert temperature will reach uncomfortable levels soon. As they exited the workshop toward his truck, Ronan wondered what exactly he was getting himself into, but the thought of turning away this strange visitor never crossed his mind. Some mysteries demanded to be solved, and this one had walked right through his door, leaving silver footprints that vanished like morning dew. Mechanical hearts. The desert shimmered with heat as Ronan's truck bounced across the uneven terrain. Nissa sat rigidly beside him, her mercury-like clothing reflecting sunlight and ripples across the dashboard. Her attention shifted constantly between the landscape outside and the truck's mechanical features, fingers hovering near the radio dials without touching them. Your transportation device is remarkably primitive, she observed, but her tone carried fascination rather than judgment. Ronan laughed. This old girl's got character, though I'm guessing your vessel makes my truck look like a horse and buggy. I am unfamiliar with this comparison. Her head tilted, but my craft utilizes gravitational manipulation rather than combustion. I find your method intriguing. Its inefficiency creates this pleasant rumbling sensation. As they approached the crash site, Nissa directed him beyond the depression he'd found last night. The impact site was merely where the cloaking system activated. My vessel rests approximately 200 meters northwest. When Ronan parked where indicated, he saw nothing but empty desert. So where is it? Nissa withdrew a small device from her clothing that resembled a polished stone. She pressed her thumb against its surface. The air before them shimmered, and suddenly a sleek oval-shaped craft materialized. It was smaller than he expected, perhaps 20 feet long, with a surface that reminded him of liquid metal, similar to Nissa's clothing but darker, with subtle purple undertones. That's incredible, he whispered. It is standard technology where I come from. She approached the ship. Placing her palm against its surface, a seam appeared and widened into an entrance. Please enter. The interior was surprisingly spacious, filled with panels of light rather than physical, controls a central chamber housed what appeared to be the engine, a suspended sphere of swirling energy contained within. Crystalline structures. This is the navigational array, Nisa explained, indicating a damaged section where the sphere's light dimmed. The component I showed you interfaces here. Ronan studied the technology, his mind racing to understand principles far beyond Earth science. I can fabricate something similar in shape, but the materials. I have remaining raw materials, she interrupted. I lack the tools to reshape them. My ship's fabrication systems were damaged. Over the next several hours, Ronan found himself working alongside Nisa in a strange collaboration. She explained alien concepts while he contributed practical mechanical knowledge. Despite the vast technological gap, they found common ground in the universal principles of engineering. As afternoon faded toward evening, Ronan sat back, wiping sweat from his brow. We should continue tomorrow. I need more specialized equipment from my workshop. On the drive back, Nisa seemed more relaxed. Her questions became personal rather than technical. Why do you live in isolation? Ronan considered the question. After my parents died, I just preferred machines to people. Machines make sense. They break. You fix them. Simple. People are not simple? Not in my experience, he glanced at her. What about you? Why were you passing Earth? Her silver eyes clouded. I was not passing, I was fleeing. She looked away. On my world, I am what you might call a genetic specialist. My research produced results that challenged our hierarchical structure. When my findings threatened powerful interests, I became. She paused, searching for the word inconvenient. So you're a refugee, Ronan said softly. A temporary displacement, she corrected. But uncertainty lingered in her voice at the workshop. Ronan cleared space for her to stay. You can sleep here tonight. My species requires minimal rest compared to humans, she explained. But I appreciate the accommodation. As night fell, Ronan found Nisa examining his collection of vinyl records with intense curiosity. He selected one and placed it on his turntable. The warm sounds of jazz filled the workshop. This is how you record information? She asked. This is how we capture music. He smiled. It's inefficient. Imperfect, but some say that's what makes it beautiful. Nisa closed her eyes, swaying slightly. The vibrations it creates unusual sensations. That's called feeling the music. Her eyes opened, silver irises reflecting the workshop's dim light. On my world, art serves function, this serves only emotion. How fascinating. Later, as Ronan prepared for sleep, he found Nisa standing beneath his skylights, gazing at the stars. Do you miss home? He asked, joining her. I miss certainty, she admitted. Until now, my path was clear now. She turned to him. I find myself experiencing unfamiliar responses. Her hand slowly reached toward his. Their fingers touched. No flinch this time, just a gentle current passing between them. Her skin felt warmer than he expected, soft despite its alien hue. These responses, she whispered, they are not entirely unpleasant. In that moment, beneath stars that suddenly seemed to hold new meaning, Ronan realized he was developing feelings for someone not of this world, and judging by the way her silver eyes searched his face, he wasn't alone in this unexpected connection. Starbound choices, 3 days passed in a blur of work and discovery. Ronan and Nissa fell into an unexpected rhythm, shuttling between his workshop and her hidden ship. Their hands worked in tandem, human tools meeting alien technology, creating something new from their combined knowledge. Nissa absorbed Earth customs with remarkable speed, while her speech remained formal. She began using contractions and even attempted humor. Her initial rigidity softened when Ronan explained the concept of dancing one evening. Her attempt to mimic his movements resulted in both of them laughing until they couldn't breathe. Your species expresses joy so openly, she said, her purple skin flushed darker with exertion. It's inefficient but exhilarating. Inefficient is our specialty, Ronan replied, his hand finding hers. Their fingers intertwined naturally now, the contact no longer causing her to flinch. What do your people do for fun? Cerebral stimulation, mental puzzles, approved art forms. She looked down at their joined hands. Physical contact is reserved for specific genetic pairing ceremonies. So this would be inappropriate back home? Her silver eyes met his extremely. A small smile curved her lips. Perhaps that's why I find it so fascinating. The navigation array neared completion, each successful test bringing them closer to the moment neither wanted to acknowledge. When the final component locked into place, the ship's systems hummed with renewed energy. Streams of light coursed through previously dark channels. "It's working," Ronan said, his voice hollow despite the achievement. Nisa's expression remained unreadable as she ran diagnostics. Full functionality restored launch capabilities at 97%. This exceeds optimal requirements. She turned to him. "You've accomplished something remarkable." "We did," he corrected, together. That evening, they sat outside the workshop beneath a blanket of stars. The repair complete, the unspoken question hung between them. Ronan finally gave it voice. "When will you leave?" Nissa studied the night sky. "The optimal departure window opens tomorrow night. Atmospheric conditions will provide maximum cloaking effectiveness." "So soon," he whispered Ronan. Her voice softened as she turned toward him. "There's something I haven't told you. My departure isn't merely about repairs." His heart tightened. "What do you mean?" "On my world, I was assigned a genetic pairing partner, a political arrangement to bind scientific houses." Her silver eyes reflected starlight. "My research threatened this arrangement. The findings demonstrated that forced pairings produced inferior offspring, a conclusion that undermined our social structure. So you ran." "I fled with my research when they realized its implications. They sent pursuers." She looked down. "I've monitored transmissions. They're searching neighboring systems." Ronan's blood ran cold. "They're coming here?" "Not specifically, but their search pattern will eventually include this sector." She touched his face, her purple fingers cool against his skin. "If I remain, I endanger not only myself but potentially your entire planet." The weight of her words settled between them. He understood the choice wasn't simply about their feelings. Their brief connection, however powerful, stood against the safety of worlds. "Then you have to go," he said finally, his voice breaking despite his resolve. Nisa moved closer, her body fitting against his like she belonged there. "In 3 days, you've shown me more about connection than my species has in generations." When their lips met, Ronan felt an electric current pass between them. Her mouth was softer than he imagined, tasting faintly of something sweet and unfamiliar. Her arms wrapped around him with surprising strength. The kiss deepened, born of desperation and desire and the knowledge that time was slipping away. Later, beneath the workshop skylights, their bodies found a different kind of connection. Purple skin against tan, silver eyes locked on brown. Her touch was tentative at first, then increasingly confident as she discovered the contours of human pleasure. In turn, he mapped the luminescent patterns that appeared across her skin when she experienced joy. Her quiet gasps formed a melody he committed to memory, knowing he might never hear it again. "If circumstances were different," she whispered against his chest afterward, "I would stay." "If circumstances were different," he echoed, "I would go with you." They lay awake through the night, neither willing to surrender to sleep and lose precious hours as dawn broke across the desert. Nissa traced patterns on his skin that might have been words in her language or simply the universal expression of things too profound for speech. The day of departure arrived with cruel swiftness, bringing with it a choice neither wanted to make but both understood was necessary. The universe had brought them together across impossible distances only to pull them apart again, but in the space between stars, they had found something neither expected, a connection that transcended worlds. Cosmic resonance. The desert sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple that reminded Ronan of Nissa's skin when she blushed. They stood beside her ship, now fully repaired and humming with energy ready for departure. Wind whispered across the sand, carrying the scent of sage and the promise of night. "The atmospheric conditions are optimal," Nissa said, her voice betraying emotions her species supposedly rarely expressed. "My departure window opens in 17 minutes. Ronan nodded. Unable to trust his own voice, he'd spent the day in a strange limbo. helping her prepare while fighting the urge to sabotage her ship. Just one missing component would give them more time, but he couldn't do that to her. Not when staying meant danger. "I have something for you," he finally managed. Reaching into his pocket, he withdrew a small object, a gear from his first motorcycle, polished to a mirror shine and mounted on a chain. "It's not alien technology, just an old part, but it's important to me." Nisa took it, silver eyes widening as she examined the simple gift. "This represents your beginning as a mechanic. It represents transformation, one thing becoming another." He swallowed hard, like us. She closed her fingers around it. "Our molecular structures may differ, but this connection between us." She pressed her free hand to her chest. "It defies scientific explanation. We call that love," Ronan said simply. "And it doesn't have to make sense." Her eyes met his. "I have something for you as well." She reached into her mercury-like clothing and produced a small crystal that pulsed with violet light. "This is a communication resonator, a fragment of my ship's core." She pressed it into his palm where it warmed instantly. "It's attuned to my bioelectric signature. When I think of you, it will pulse, and if you hold it while thinking of me, I will feel an echo across any distance." "Any distance?" Hope flickered in his chest. "Even between stars?" "The quantum entanglement is theoretically infinite." A smile touched her lips, though never tested across such vast spaces. Ronan closed his fingers around the crystal, feeling it pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Will you come back?" Nissa hesitated. "My people are persistent. They will search for many cycles." Her expression softened. "But they are not eternal, and I am very stubborn when safe passage can be secured." She touched his face. "I will calculate a return trajectory. I'll be here." He leaned into her touch, fixing engines, watching stars. The ship's lights pulsed, indicating departure time. The moment they'd both dreaded had arrived. Nissa's silver eyes shimmered with moisture. A physical response. She'd explained her species. "Rarely exhibited, you've changed me, Ronan Mercer." Her voice carried that musical quality he'd grown to love. "In my culture, we believe energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. You've transformed something within me." Their final kiss tasted of salt and promises, desperate yet tender with the weight of worlds between them. When they parted, Ronan pressed his forehead against hers. "The stars brought you to me once, they can do it again." She nodded, stepping back toward her vessel. "Look for me in the northern sky when the seasons have cycled 3 times. Watch for violet light." 3 years, he translated. "I can wait." Nissa entered her ship, the entrance sealing seamlessly behind her, through the translucent hull. He could see her taking position at the control interface. Their eyes met one last time before the cloaking. System engaged. The ship shimmered like a mirage, then vanished. Completely, only the disturbed sand marked its ascent as it rose silently. Into the darkening sky, Ronan clutched the crystal, feeling it pulse warmly against his palm. He watched long after the ship had disappeared, imagining its path beyond Earth's atmosphere into the vast unknown. The drive back to his workshop felt longer than ever. The silence where Nissa's voice should be echoed painfully, but the crystal in his pocket pulsed steadily, a heartbeat across the cosmos. Days passed then. Weeks. Ronan returned to his routine of fixing engines and watching stars, but now each repair reminded him of their collaboration. Each night sky held new, meaning the crystal pulsed frequently at first, then settled into a regular rhythm, morning and night. As though saying hello and good night across impossible distance, he began documenting stellar movements, calculating possible trajectories from Earth to distant systems. He learned astronomy, astrophysics, anything that might help him understand the space between them. Though most called him eccentric, his new knowledge led to innovations in his mechanical work, hybrid engines with unprecedented efficiency that brought customers from across the country. 1 year passed, 2 life continued, but the crystal never stopped its gentle pulsing on quiet nights. Ronan would sit outside his workshop, hold the crystal to his heart and whisper to the stars. Sometimes he swore the pulse quickened in response, as though she heard him in his garage. He kept a calendar marking off days until 3 years would pass, until the northern sky might bring violet light, until possibility became reality. He knew the odds. He understood the vastness of space and the dangers she faced, but he also understood something else. That love, like energy, couldn't be destroyed, only transformed, and across the cosmos, transformed by their brief connection, An alien woman with purple skin and silver eyes was finding her way back to a desert workshop where a man fixed broken things and watched the stars with patient hope. The crystal in his pocket pulsed steadily warm against his skin. Somewhere in the infinite dark, she was thinking of him, and in 3 years or 30, he would be waiting with eyes turned skyward. For when stars fall into desert hands, they leave an imprint that never fades.